Buddy, welcome to FL Teams Live. Jeff Macolino here, as always, with Jeremiah Hensley, bringing you the weekly NFL power rankings as we do every Wednesday. Starting this one off, obviously, um, we need to talk about, and also everyone at FL Teams wants to give their thoughts and prayers to Damar Hamlin and the Hamlin family and the Buffalo Bills organization, players, and everyone for the scary and if I don't know if there's a better word than scary moment that we all witnessed. And again, thoughts and prayers from myself and Jeremiah and everyone at FL Teams goes out to the Bills and to the Hamlin family. And we're not breaking any news on his health, but obviously we hope that we hear good news in the near future as far as he is concerned. We'll have a shorter episode probably than normal, but we will talk and we'll reveal our power rankings with the football that we got to see and looking ahead at the last week of the regular season. Let's hop into it. Before we do that, I do want to bring up, because the Hall of Fame finalists were just announced, and I just saw this list moments before we went live. So I hope I'm not missing anyone. The two that jump out to me with NFL connections to Florida, Zach Thomas and Rondé Barber. Rondé Barber, of course, spent his whole career with the Bucs. Really defined that Tampa 2 corner role. He has sack numbers that you don't really see from a cornerback. He had plenty of picks. He had that big pick 6 in the NFC Championship game back in 2002, which I'm sure any Eagles fans watching love to hear about. And Jeremiah, I know you got to see Zach Thomas play for quite a while with Miami, and have a spectacular and certainly Hall of Fame worthy career. So I'll let you take the floor for a minute on Zach.
the little man don't get no respect. Coming out of Texas Tech, he was considered to be an undersized linebacker, and dude, he held it down for Miami in a way that was unbelievable. Led in tackles all the time. People didn't realize he could also play in coverage. A couple of interceptions. I'll always have the epic one that he ran back and did a flip into the end zone. But Zach Thomas was the heart of that defense. And the way he played football like a Hall of Famer should play football. It didn't matter if you were down by 40. It didn't matter if you were in a 2-point game. It didn't matter if it was preseason or in the wild card game. Zach went 110% always. And he was a machine for tackles, turnovers. It's long overdue. Zach Thomas really needs to get in this year, man. It's every year he gets to the finals, but I can't think of another linebacker out there more deserving. In fact, I'd make the argument that he's better than a lot of the linebackers who have been drafted in recently. So hopefully this year we change that. Maybe this year Zach gets his due.
Yeah, and also, I apologize if I'm missing anyone with a Florida connection. I'll also shout out, I believe there's 3 University of Miami players that are also finalists: Devin Hester, Reggie Wayne, and Andre Johnson. And again, I apologize if I'm missing a connection here with the final 15, but pretty impressive. Just sometimes you forget. It hasn't been that long, and what a program, the University of Miami. What kind of NFL players they were churning out. Unbelievable.
Hey, the U was for real, man. The U was for real. They were just pumping them out. And, you also kind of forget, it gets out of sight, out of mind. Well, who's the last kick returner who set things up the way Devin Hester did? No matter what, you didn't want to kick the ball to Hester. Like you'd kick him out of bounds. You'd punt it short. You didn't give a crap. You just weren't going to give Hester a chance to beat you with it. And we don't have that today. There's not a return man in the game. And I don't know if that's because they've changed the rules up a little bit, especially on kickoffs, but you don't see returns the way that you used to. Like Devin Hester was an absolute threat to go house every time he touched the ball.
Well, he's got that Ray Guy thing. Yeah, we don't put punters in the Hall of Fame, but the greatest to ever do it, probably
you might
deserves.
want to make an exception.
Yeah. I would say, of course, the problem is 15 finalists. I go through that list. I couldn't pick out one guy who I don't think deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I said to you before we went on, I wish once every 5 to 10 years they'd say, we're just going to instead of voting on 5 modern day candidates, we're going to vote on all 15 and just clear out this backlog. because there are guys that did not make this list of 15 who are on the list of 25, and I think all of them deserve to be in the Hall of Fame as well. So, it's a process.
Yeah, hopefully this year again. Hopefully Zach gets his due, man. That would be huge for me. A big Zach Thomas fan. That's like, after Marino, he was my guy. Small Zach Thomas note. Did you know that Jason Taylor married Zach Thomas's sister?
I remember hearing something about that. That's
And then if I'm not mistaken, I think some point during the career when Jason Taylor and Zach Thomas were on the same team, Jason Taylor was divorcing Zach Thomas's sister. So that could have been a very awkward locker room.
I've got a weird thing I'll share with you after that just doesn't fit in this. But, yeah, that's where my head went actually. All right, let's jump into our power rankings. But first, our newest partner is revolutionizing the world of sports betting and fan engagement by making sports fandom profitable. That company is Symbol, the stock market for sports. Download the Symbol app, that's SIMBULL, and use the code FLTeams to receive a free team stock valued up to $150 upon signing up. Again, that's Symbol and the promo code FLTeams. All right. The number 32 spot's been rotating quite a bit after being stagnant for a while. But returning to number 32, don't call it a comeback. It's the Houston Texans, just barely reclaiming their spot. Number 31, the Denver Broncos. Number 30, the Indianapolis Colts. Number 29, the Chicago Bears. Number 28, the Arizona Cardinals. Number 27, the defending champion, Los Angeles Rams. Number 26, the Atlanta Falcons. Number 25, the Carolina Panthers. Number 24, the Las Vegas Raiders. Number 23, the losers of 5 straight, the New York Jets. Number 22, the losers of 6 straight, the Tennessee Titans. Number 21, the Cleveland Browns. Number 20, the losers of 3 big ones, I think at least 3 in a row, the Washington Commanders. Number 19, losers of 5 straight. There's a trend here with these teams. The Miami Dolphins. Number 18, the winners of 3 straight, but not going to make the playoffs, the New Orleans Saints. And number 17, 2-5 in their last 7 games after beating the Jets. The number 17, the Seattle Seahawks. So a few things here that pop out is we're talking 3 of these teams have legitimate playoffs chances still in this bottom half. The Seahawks, again, despite being 2-5 in their last 7 games, if the Lions beat the Packers and the Seahawks can beat the Rams, it's certainly possible. The Seahawks will stumble their way into the playoffs. The Miami Dolphins need New England, who just cracked the top half of these rankings, but they're struggling too. They need New England to lose, and they need to beat the Jets. If either one of those teams actually wants to win a game. And I guess that's a good place to start. And obviously the other team is Tennessee. They win and they're in, even though they've lost 6 straight games and stumbled to number 22. They can beat the Jaguars Saturday night. They do make the playoffs. Let's start with the matchup. The Florida team in the bottom half, the only one in the bottom half to round out the rankings heading into the last week of the season, the Dolphins. We'll talk about their matchup with the Jets, and I want you to at least be able to reference your video that came out on FL Teams, if nothing else, when I kick it to you here.
Yeah, man. It's disheartening to be a Dolphin fan because it seems like every year, I may not be here on the power rankings saying it, but the Dolphins somehow in the middle of the season give everybody hope, and then they find a way to fall apart at the end of the season. And it always comes down to like the last week. Control your destiny. Last year, we went into Buffalo when Buffalo literally had nothing to play for. And if we would have won, we're in the playoffs. And Buffalo just completely blew our doors off, right? It happens so much. And last week, it was like deja vu, right? I was watching that game with the Patriots, and the way that I saw it go down, I was angry at what I was watching, but then it was like I had one of those weird ass flashbacks to every year that I was mad at what I was watching in that year, and that year, and that year, and that year, and that year. And it's just over and over and over and over. It's the same story. So, you look at this year, if the Jets have any amount of heart, which I think Robert Saleh is going to push them to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sauce Gardner and those guys are going to have a field day because we're starting Skylar Thompson, right? Now, here's the one thing I will not let Dolphin fans do, and they get a little pissed off about it, but it is what it is. It's the NFL. Stop crying, okay? Look, if you want to go with it, San Francisco lost Trey Lance, who was their starter, lost Jimmy Garoppolo, who was in behind them, and starting Brock Purdy, and they're winning football games, all right? Tennessee went and literally picked up a dude off the scrap heap that nobody wanted, and then a week later plug him in and win a football game. Like, this is, you can't cry when Tua's in, right? Because the bottom line is, of those 5 losses, Tua was very much a part of 4 of those. Mm-hmm. And the offense is figured out, okay? They found out now, and I don't know why it took them this long in the season to do it, that everything with Miami was based on timing, right? So the fear is you don't want to get beat over the top. So the natural reaction is the corners pull back. When you pull back, you're giving Waddle and Hill a clean release from the line of scrimmage, which sets up the timing. So the light bulb went off somewhere, probably around San Francisco, where they stood up and they said, you know what? We're going to jack you at the line. We're going to bust you at the line, which is going to throw the timing. And if we get beat over the top, we get beat over the top, but you're not going to beat us 15 yards at a time across the middle. Mm-hmm. And McDaniel hasn't adjusted. No adjustments, right? So this week, Skylar Thompson rolls out. For me, man, what I made that, and you can see it on FL Teams, is just this. People can take it one way or the other. Like, I'm not letting the Dolphins get my emotions anymore. I really thought about this long and hard, and it sounds melodramatic, but there's so much good football. So much good football. There's so many great games and storylines that every Sunday I find how I take those games in is dictated by how the Dolphins did and how I feel. And I just can't keep giving my emotions to somebody who doesn't give it back. It's like a toxic relationship. I'll watch them, and I hope for the Dolphins fans, I think it's a great fan base. I hope they do well. Personally, I think it's a dumpster fire, and it's only going to get worse. I'm seeing it as the Titanic, and I'm jumping on the first life raft because Tua may never play a game in the NFL, period. If he's smart, he won't. I'm sorry. I'm not a neurologist, but, I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express. No, dude, he's got to go. And Teddy Bridgewater is brittle. He hasn't finished a game he started. And then the Dolphins, you're in cap space hell. You got no cap because you went out and you got Tyreek for the money that you did. You paid Bradley Chubb when he came over. You just extended Xavier Howard. Like, your money's done. You really pushed all your chips in because this was the year, and we end up mediocre yet again, only this time with no draft picks to bail you out. So no draft picks, no cap space, possibly no quarterback. And we mentioned it brief before, but I like Mike McDaniel. I like that he's different. I like the way he is with press conferences, how he handles all this stuff. But if he comes out of this losing again, how can a first-year coach, how do you let this guy stay on with a 7-game slide or 6-game slide, right? You can't. You can't.
It seems, in this game, you mentioned the Jets showing up to play. And look, Saleh did not have the expectations that McDaniel had coming into the season. But to lose the last 6 games of a season and miss the playoffs for either one of these teams, one or both might miss the playoffs. I think the Dolphins have a decent chance. They win this game. The Patriots lose to the Bills.
The Bills are still
Dolphins
playing
get
for
in. They're
something.
probably
The Bills should steamroll the Pats. I mean, that's just they should.
presumably, yeah,
Yeah.
and you know, it's now look, you're setting up Miami's probably going to get destroyed, probably
Yeah,
with
they
Skylar
will.
Thompson or maybe Teddy Bridgewater, but I don't, you know, either one.
Yeah.
You're facing just to talk about the AFC playoff pictures. Something I have all these streaks. You've got Cincinnati's won 7 straight, Buffalo's won 6 straight, Kansas City, the Chargers, Jacksonville have won 4 straight, Pittsburgh, who probably won't make it, they're 6-2 in their last 8 games. On the flip side, these teams, well, the Jets are now out of it, but they've lost 5 straight, kicking themselves out of it. Tennessee can win. They've lost 6 straight.
That's crazy.
Miami's lost 5 straight. New England's 2-4, including 2 games they really screwed the pooch in. I mean, if they win one of those 2 games against Vegas or Cincinnati,
right,
they might already have clinched as we're sitting here. But you've got, you know, 5 teams going this direction. 4 of them are locked in the playoffs already. Everyone else, including the Ravens, who I didn't mention, but we don't know what Lamar Jackson's status is, and they're not winning a playoff game with Huntley.
No,
they're not. You know, I don't. They're going to get trounced by Jacksonville if that's the matchup in the first round. So the AFC is really seems like the first round might be a battle of streaks, and a lot of teams that are hot going to be playing a lot of teams that are ice cold. Probably not a fun week.
No, if the Dolphins back into the playoffs, it literally will remind me of, like, I grew up in Western North Carolina with a bunch of, you know, not the most athletic white folk that you know. And when I was like 13 years old playing like an AAU basketball, we won our region and we got to go to the state tournament with these 13 and 14-year-old kids. And we end up in like the middle of Charlotte. These kids are like AAU ready. And it's just like us coming out from Hoosiers, and you get the door blown off of you like 120-30, where people are just dunking all. It was like, congrats on getting there. You're going to get blown out. I mean, it's, you know, anything can happen. And we're not going into Cincinnati, Kansas City, or Buffalo, however it plays out.
No, I don't think the Dolphins could go into Jacksonville with any confidence of winning.
Probably
right?
not. Right?
Not that matchup's going to happen, but you know, that's just
it's a participation trophy. It's you did a really good job at the first of the year. Congratulations. But
it's a good segue. Participation trophy.
Yeah.
Let's kick off our top half. Number 16, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers got their participation trophy. Although I'm going to defend the NFC South a little bit, because are they worse than the AFC South? No. No. Actually, probably top to bottom, mainly the 3-4 teams. I would take them way ahead of the AFC South's bottom 2 teams.
Yep.
So I'm just saying, I hate Tom Brady, but let's leave the NFC South alone. The Bucs have a game that means nothing this weekend, although I'm sure Brady will want to play to preserve a winning record. Speaking of Brady, his old mates, number 15, the New England Patriots. Number 14, the refuse to lose Pittsburgh Steelers. They win ugly every week, just to spite you, Jeremiah.
They really do.
Number 13, the sizzling hot win, and they're in Green Bay Packers. Number 12, the team they have to beat to get in, who needs a lot of help, the Detroit Lions. Well, they need one game to go their way. Number 11, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the highest-ranked Florida team, second straight week. Number 10, the New York Giants. Number 9, the Baltimore Ravens. This is where the rankings got really interesting, by the way. Number 7, the Los Angeles Chargers. They're red hot.
Yep.
Number 6, the Dallas Cowboys. Number 5, the San Francisco 49ers. Number 4, Gardner Minshew's not a great backup, maybe. The Philadelphia Eagles. Their injury bugs come around. Number 3, the Cincinnati Bengals. Number 2, the Kansas City Chiefs, and number 1 remaining on top, the Buffalo Bills. Seems like, well, let's start with the Bucs. I have the Jaguars on the screen here. Let's start with the Bucs. I think I said this on this show a month ago when we didn't know whether it was going to be the Saints, the Falcons, the Panthers, or the Bucs that snuck through, and I said, watch, they're going to host and beat Dallas in the first round of the playoffs. I have no faith in Tom Brady whatsoever. If the Saints had turned things around one game earlier, the Saints, I think, would have beaten the doors off of Dallas in the playoffs. Carolina would have made things real interesting.
They were fun. Carolina was fun.
Yeah, and they didn't seem to like to stick with the run game against the Bucs. And boy, number 24 Henderson does not look like he belongs in the NFL. But I can go on that rant a whole other day. My God, Evans was beating him by 10 yards on every pass.
Oh,
it's like,
buddy.
what? Who is playing cornerback? Same guy every play. He must have gotten the Brady payoff. But look, the Bucs are in the playoffs. It's an interesting match because Dallas seems ripe to blow a game in the playoffs. It's almost like that's what they've done the last 20 years anytime they get in.
Look, you know where I've been on the Bucs all year. There's been that part of me that just keeps saying they're going to flip a switch. They're going to flip a switch. If you are Dallas right now, you're not looking forward to seeing them because Tom Brady, I mean, look, I'm surprised they only win this game by 6 points. Brady, 34 for 45, 432 with 3 touchdowns. Now, the flip of that, we talked all year about what? Brady just seems to have lost his connection with the receivers, right? They're just not on the same page. Evans, 10 receptions, 207 yards, 3 touchdowns.
It's easy to get a connection when the corner's letting you run 10 yards past him down the field.
Him and Mike Evans got on the same page. And the name, look, Leonard Fournette, 10 carries for 28 yards. Boring, right? They call him Playoff Lenny. Lenny when Fournette gets in the playoffs.
No, don't start this trash. You remind me of Isaac now. The Bucs suck. They might win a game in the playoffs. I will give them a game. They will get slaughtered in the second round. If Dallas, and look, the only way they beat Dallas is Dallas craps the bed.
But they have a way of doing that, though, right? I mean,
they have a way of doing that. Look at the Bucs games. The Cardinals outplayed the Bucs, should have won that game. Yeah. They crapped the bed. The Saints outplayed the Bucs. Mark Ingram forgot how football was played for one play, and not to mention Taysom Hill dropping a pass. They crapped the bed. The Rams, Cooper Kupp actually could have picked up a first down and slid 5 yards short to keep the clock running. And the clock matters a lot less if you get the first down because the game would have been over, dummy. Teams just have a tendency, and I know people are going to say it's Brady, but the teams, when they're on offense, have a tendency to choke and do stupid things, it seems like, when they're playing the Bucs this year. I don't credit Brady for that, but luck is look at the Minnesota Vikings. They're the worst 12-4 team, I think, in the history of football. They should not. I wouldn't pick them to beat any team in the playoffs. But they're 12-4, so luck does matter in football.
It does.
I mean, so look, they're playing a team that likes to choke in the playoffs. Teams have been giving away games to the Bucs all year. Yeah, why not? But it's not going to last. It's not going to be a deep playoff run. I give him a chance to win one game, and then Brady is no longer the quarterback of the Bucs. The 13 Bucs fans that remain can shut the hell up and get off my lawn.
Yeah, again, I do think that somewhere there is an understanding in there from a dude who literally this blew my mind. Tom Brady has literally played as many years in the NFL as he has not. Half of his life has been normal old Tom Brady, not in the NFL. The other half of his life has been on an NFL field. That's just a crazy, it's unheard of in everything. I mean, literally half your life, right? So I think it's 22 and 22 or something. It's crazy. But when you've done this so much, you understand and know what it takes to make a playoff run. And you also know that there's a time you can turn it on and off. I honestly believe that. So this is one of those, let's just get in and now we'll make noise. I don't know how far they'll go because I think the Eagles, when healthy, will absolutely trounce them. I can't say the Vikings are an absolute winner over anybody. The Vikings, again, the craziest 12-4 team you've ever come across. Like, you can't, there's nobody in the league, including Houston, that you could be like, Minnesota's going to beat them. You're like, I don't know.
I'll say this. I saw this on several national shows one week to the next. They were on a national audience on Christmas. They won the game, and everyone said the Bucs suck. They're not a good team. They're not a playoff team. They've been lucky to win some of these games. They're not on national TV, and all you see is 3 deep bombs to a wide open Mike Evans down the field, and you say, there they go. The Bucs are back. No, you didn't watch them sucking the entire first half to need to throw these bombs to catch up to the Carolina Panthers.
Well, when you see those numbers, you'd think there'd be more than 30 points put up, right? I mean,
yeah,
literally,
and the last 6, let's be clear, they put up 24. The last 6, Sam Darnold fumbled and the Bucs recovered at like the 2-yard line, and Brady was able to sneak one in, which ended up being an important 6 because they then let Carolina go down, kick the field goal, and they did get the ball back. But no, the Bucs are, it's one of those things where when you hide them from national audience, you could say, oh, look at these few highlights. They're clicking. But then, people who actually watch the game are like, oh, it's an ugly team. I don't care that they had a few highlights that actually worked because Henderson doesn't know how to play cornerback. But
so what you're saying is kind of like when you come across a girl on Tinder that you know in real life and you see the pictures and you're like, she ain't that cute. But like 3 of them, you're like, ooh, like, no, that, right. Look a little deeper.
Yeah, well, it's. I'm saying all of these places though. They say, the Bucs. We don't want them in the playoffs. They shouldn't be in. They all the next when Brady. Oh, the Bucs! Look out, Tom Brady, magic! Oh, shut the hell up!
They love
Get
that
off my lawn.
Hey, I know we're gonna jump to Jacksonville. There's one thing I have to say because you mentioned it. The Steelers are the death of me over and over and over again. They are. I like watching the Steelers Ravens because it's a hard fought rivalry. If you watch that game, I didn't see anybody all day Sunday watching the red zone, the Dolphins games and everything else that wanted to win a game more than Najee Harris wanted to win that game on Sunday. Najee Harris won that game for Pittsburgh. Dude, in the fourth quarter, the hurdle over the guy takes it another 5 yards, right? Not to mention that the game-winning catch where nobody would even thought he was on a route. And the hands on a running back. But the play that got me, Jeff, I don't know if you saw this one or not. It was like a 4th and 1, and they ran the quarterback sneak. And Kenny Pickett went to the right side of the center, and it was clogged up. Najee Harris ran behind him, grabbed him by the hips, and shoved him to the left where the hole was on the offensive line and pushed him through for a first down. He was like, nope, over here. Like, Najee took over. And I'll be damned if the Steelers didn't come out and play hard. They played Steeler football, running the ball with him and Jalen Warren. With TJ Watt back, that defense is different. Pittsburgh's one of those teams that if they get themselves into the playoffs, it's another one that like Baltimore don't want to see them again, with or without Lamar. There's a lot in there that, that defense and the way they play football, I hate them. But I got to give them their credit, man.
Yeah, I tried to watch that game, but I had a high fever, and I watching those two teams play made me feel like I was watching on New Year's Day, 1973 or something.
That's the way they play.
Ugly football.
A buddy of mine earlier in the day was like, what side of this would you take, right? Like whatever the spread was. I'm like, dude, every Baltimore and Pittsburgh, just take the points. Take the points. It doesn't matter who gets them. Take the points because it's going to be a 3-point game. Like, just take the points. Then you'll be fine. But Najee really impressed me, dude. He really did. Like football IQ, the plays he made, and he looked like the back that everybody thought he was going to be out of Alabama.
Yeah, and they're hot.
They are.
I mean, 6-2 in their last 8. Jacksonville, speaking of hot teams, 4 straight. They win their end. They win the AFC South at 9-8. Again, would be the same record if the Bucs win as the NFC South champion. So let's lay off the NFC South a little bit. But the Jaguars are hot. They're playing an ice cold Tennessee Titans team. So obviously we'll look ahead here, but I would be stunned if the Jaguars don't beat. I'm pretty sure I heard Josh Dobbs is going to be starting again for Tennessee. And he played all right against Dallas. I mean, sure. Dak was throwing picks. He kept them in the game for a bit, but Jacksonville looks like they're going to score no matter who they play, at least something. And their defense is really putting it together a little bit more and more as the year progresses. That, I think, was maybe the part that was missing more in the beginning. It's a young team. And again, they might have a pretty cool playoff matchup if they end up going against a beat up Baltimore in the first round.
Oh yeah.
Is there any way, I guess a 2-part question, because I think the answer to the first part is going to be no. So I'll give you one you can answer yes to.
All right.
Should Doug Peterson be the front runner for coach of the year with what he's done with this team?
I don't think so, only because San Francisco. I mean, I think San Francisco's lost 3, and they put up bigger numbers with what it is. Some people would have said Sirianno for Philly, but I don't,
Dable, the Giants.
Right, Dable with the Giants. That's a hell of a job that he's done. I mean, Peterson's in the conversation. I will wear this, though, man, and I know we've got these videoed, right? Like, all of our stuff goes up live. Go find preseason. I think we were doing it with Andrew, and I don't think I was alone. 1 or 2 of you said it too, but I'm like, this Jacksonville team can be a playoff team this year. They're young and they're finding their stride. Dude, and then think about it. It's going to be almost a month to the day that Jacksonville went into Tennessee and walked out with a 14-point win. And now it's in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Right. Tennessee would be another team that disappoints at the end of the year. I feel like they're always like winning in, and can't come through with it. I think the Jaguars are just flat out a better team than the Titans, especially without Ryan Tannehill. And I can't believe I said that. Like, without Ryan Tannehill, the Titans really are completely different.
Yeah, it seems like they've always been a one-dimensional team, but they truly are a one-dimensional team. And any team in the NFL is going to be able to stop you if they can just stack the box. I don't care how good your offensive line and Derrick Henry or your whole stable of running backs might be. If they know you're going to run, you're not going to be able to do it all day. You'll get some yards, but you're not going to be able to win a game without having a threat to get the ball down the field at some point. It just doesn't work.
And God love him, Tannehill, what he got criticized for in Miami is what makes him valuable in Tennessee. He's a distributor, right? He's a distributor. He's on the 5-yard outs and the slants, and he's just, he usually doesn't make dumb decisions. He's pretty smart with the ball and just gets all of the people involved underneath, right? You miss that. But you and I were talking too prior to the show. What does this really say about Malik Willis? If they are not trusting Malik Willis during this slide and they're starting a guy that they pulled off the scrap heap a week ago, like, how far behind is Malik Willis?
Yeah. Well, it's not a good sign. I mean, and look, I talked about McDaniel and Saleh having a risk of their job. I don't think Vrabel, even losing 7 straight to end out the season, I don't think he's in any risk of losing his job. So assuming he's going to be there a while, I think he's clearly showing that he does not have any faith in Malik Willis at this point. So, I wonder, does he get a look in camp, compete for starting? Do they maybe even try to see if they can get a team to drop a 3rd-round pick or a 4th-round pick for him this, like Josh Rosen was traded pretty quickly when his original drafted team decided they didn't want him.
And
Um,
the Dolphins took a chance on Rosen, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Dolphins, maybe with our quarterback situation, what it could be next year, might not throw a fourth rounder at him to say, we'll give him a
right.
shot.
Well, and that's where my head was at too. Is you have a team like the Dolphins who maybe go into camp with Tua, who's an unknown, and Thompson. Maybe we'll get another young guy in the mix. I mean, I think that would maybe be better for a veteran. But look at the Saints. They might go in. They're probably moving on from Jameis Winston. It seems like they like Andy Dalton. What if they can't draft a quarterback in the second round? Maybe they say, hey, we'll give our third round. We like Malik Willis better than what we can get in the third, fourth round of this draft.
Yeah.
Give him a shot. I wouldn't be shocked if Tennessee started asking around about stuff like that. I mean, he's young. He went to a small school. And there's still plenty of time. He was a third round pick, so you'd never be called a bust, as a third round pick. But
would you have ever thought that we would be sitting here on the cusp of week 18 and the best football team in Florida playing the best football right now and the best team that has the best chance of making noise in the playoffs would be the Jacksonville Jaguars? God, I wish we could get Andrew on here. He's just got to be ecstatic.
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, not even look. It's at any point until 2-3 weeks ago. If you had said that, be like, you're crazy. I said this to you beforehand. I think I messaged you this over the weekend. What would you have thought? The Dolphins, I think when the Saints fell to 4-9, the Dolphins were 8-4 because the Saints didn't have their bye week yet.
Yeah.
If I had told you, hey, these two teams might finish the season with the same 8-9 record, you would have been like, you're an idiot. Shut up.
Yeah.
It's not funny, Jeff.
Yeah.
That's the weird thing with the momentum in this league is. And look, the Packers. I guess we can segue a little bit. This is kind of the only other game we were going to talk about, anyways. Packers have won 4 straight games. Talk about a team nobody's going to want to play, especially who's most likely to be playing them. I don't know, the Vikings or the 49ers at this point. Assuming the Eagles could beat the Giants. You think the Vikings want to play the Packers again?
Oh, no.
As someone who needed the Vikings to win for my team's playoff chances to stay alive into week 18, I sure hope they play them again and get destroyed again, just as retribution. But by the same token, as hot as Green Bay is, this is the thing with these streaks. They lose to Detroit, they miss the playoffs. All that winning meant nothing. I mean,
yeah, I really would love to see Detroit fight their way in here, man. I would. If that happens, you almost got to look at Dan Campbell as coach of the year. I mean, really seriously. But going into Lambeau, dude,
and what the Lions would need to get in is winning in Lambeau, which by itself would be a great feat. Earlier in the day, because that's the Sunday night game.
Yep.
Earlier in the day, so they'll already know before the game whether they're even a playoff possible team, because they need the Rams to beat the Seahawks, which I really hope happens, because
it could.
Look, the Lions are going to turn out to play for Dan Campbell no matter whether the playoffs are on the line or not. There's some pride in having a winning season.
Yeah.
Which they will have, even if they miss the playoffs, if they beat the Packers.
Well, and there's pride in that central of Aaron Rodgers. I own this whole thing, to be like, if we're not in, you're not going in, right? This is like it doesn't matter if we can get in or not. If we can take you out of it and you're sitting home with us, that's the next best thing,
Oh yeah, division
rival. That's going to go hard.
Yeah, and it's the same thing. Looking at the Jets and the Dolphins, really, is if the Jets don't have anything to play for. Oh yeah, they do. They want to see the Dolphins on the. The only reason they may not be as motivated is it might help the Patriots get in, which they probably hope to rely on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. The NFL always likes these matchups, especially the Sunday night game, which I thought was going to be Jacksonville, Tennessee, but that's the Saturday night game. Yeah. They like all of the games that relate to each other's outcomes to be at the same time. So there's no before the game, we already know. The Lions, I think that's kind of a testament to their team and their coach, that they said, we don't care if you already know whether you've been eliminated from the playoffs. We know you're going to put up a fight against a team that's going to need to win to get into the playoffs. I think that's a testament to Dan Campbell and the Lions, really.
100%. And, here's the other thing. Anybody talks about it. You've been, you're going through it now in New Orleans because you've got to find another one, right? But when people talk about elite quarterbacks and you talk about these young quarterbacks and what they can be and what they can't, the last 3 or 4 weeks after every Packers game, when they go to interview Aaron Rodgers, he has that sort of, pardon my French, that shit-eating grin that he's like, I knew where we were going to be sitting. Yeah, come talk to me, right? That's what people talk about when they talk about a generational quarterback. He's got rookie wide receivers that he has molded and brought together and bonded with and created danger out of those guys. He's given Randall Cobb yet another life in the NFL, right? And a quarterback can just transcend so many things. And I say all that like longingly because in Miami, I got weapons on offense, but I don't have that quarterback who can transcend that, right? If you had an Aaron Rodgers with those weapons, it would be like Brady with Moss back in the day. Like it would just be ungodly. But, and it's to have a quarterback like that is just a blessing in the NFL, and they're few and far between, man. They don't come around often.
Some people wonder if Aaron Rodgers might be on the move this offseason, or he might retire. He's an enigma. He's probably got to do some peyote out in the desert somewhere, and he'll decide he wants to play in the Canadian Football League next year.
He'll figure it out at Red Rocks with some peyote. But look,
I'd like to be invited on that trip.
Yeah, I think I'd go. I think he'd be a hell of a good hang. But again, my Dolphins, I can't worry about any of that because we have no cap, we have no picks, and I'll let it go. Like they're just in trouble.
Yeah, the picks is really the bigger issue. The cap, as a Saints fan, I could say it's all fake.
Yeah.
The Saints are always $100 million over the cap, and then they signed Tyrann Mathieu and Marcus May and have seemingly no issue finding money to pay top tier free agents. It's like it's a myth.
Look, it's like finding a really good accountant to do your taxes, right? When they all of a sudden there's loopholes and hide spots that you never knew about, right? There's little dark corners where money can go, and magically you're under the cap.
This might be a good off-season special to talk about, but Saints' philosophy is always considered inflation of the cap, where the kicking the can down the road thing. Well, yeah, but if the cap grows this much every year, you're kicking it down the road, but you have more money to play with, so that's fine. You know, the 1 year at Bidham was the COVID year where the cap actually decreased.
Yeah,
and the Saints did have to cut a couple players that year because they didn't have the amount. But now with this new YouTube deal, which I'm not fond about because I'm not a fan of streaming football, but that's a whole other issue by itself. Supposed to be a big money machine for the league, and that means the salary cap, the player salaries are going to be shooting up quite a bit in 2 years from now when that I think it's next year the deal kicks in. So yeah, probably the following year it hits the cap. So it will be interesting to see it. Again, whole other issue, way deeper than we can go. But a guy like Lamar Jackson may be playing for the franchise tag for 1 year. Not such a bad deal because there might be a lot more money.
Yeah.
Although, boy, he's been getting injured a lot the last couple of years.
It's the NFC to me when we get into playoff time, and I know we'll review them and go through it. That's going to be, the old guard, quote unquote, and the new guard, right? The old guard being, your Tom Brady's, your Kirk Cousins, hell, even Dak Prescott, right? And then the young bucks around you, from the Danny Dimes to the Brock Purdy's to the Jalen Hurts. It's like the young and the old for this like battle. And if Rodgers sneaks in there, but when you look in the AFC, there is no secret to this success. Your quarterbacks for the teams who are locked up, right? Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. Now Herbert, right? Lamar, right? And dare
outside
I say,
outside of Hurts, those are probably the top 5 quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah, and then T-Law, right, coming along.
Oh,
Trevor
yeah.
Lawrence
And
is
he's
doing his
the
deal.
next. Yeah, he's looking to take up right up that path. Yeah, that's a scary
and
quarterback situation.
And the mediocre quarterbacks are staring up. The Kenny Pickett's, the Tuas, right? The Mac Jones, like, and then God love the Jets. This is a nice sign for the Dolphins going out. You hear the Jets this week. We are sticking with Zach Wilson come hell or high water. Okay.
We'll see.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. And hey, that does prove one thing. Just because you draft a quarterback high doesn't mean that they're going to be good.
No.
There are, I think someone had brought up, and I need to, again, good offseason pre-draft conversation to have. The most frequent first-round bust of any position is quarterback. Makes sense because that's where people stretch to get guys who probably shouldn't be first-round picks.
Yeah.
Which teams didn't do, depending what you think on Kenny Pickett, didn't do this year, shockingly.
Yeah. But yeah, the other, and I won't buy so much into it, but I love the Jeff Macolino podcast and the guys that you have on and who you talk to. It's fantastic. For those who have that conspiracy theory of the NFL, you do have to say that this year there's a lot more meaningful football in week 18 than there's been in a little while, right? I mean, if you were trying to create what you've got Jacksonville versus Tennessee, winners in. You got Green Bay, Detroit sticking through what it's going to do. There's a lot of meaningful football being played in week 18. And I feel like sometimes the playoff spots are already decided by week 18. The positions are there, and a whole lot of people are just riding it out. This year, it feels a little different than that. There's a lot of teams with a lot of stuff to play for come week 18.
Yeah, it does seem like even the teams that are eliminated have a little. I know they've just, again, from a Saints perspective, but
Jets,
I think the Jets feel this way. But the Saints, they have some pride in the fact they haven't lost 10 games in a season since Katrina year.
Yeah.
And before that, Katrina, no team, the 72 Dolphins would have lost 13 games if they went through what the Saints did that year. Before that, it's been 1999 since the Saints had lost 10 games. They probably want to get that win and keep that streak going. It's not quite as impressive as Tomlin's not losing, but not finishing with double-digit losses for, going on almost 20 years. That's a program that you can be proud of and say,
absolutely.
Look, hey, we're shooting, we're shooting for it next year. So yeah, I feel like there's a lot of teams that have a little thing to play for, that even if the playoffs are out of the picture. And
the Bills, you got the Pats and the Bills in a meaningful game. That's playoff implication all over, including first round, the bye, the number 1 overall seed, and who's getting into the wild card, right? You've got, again, Dolphins Jets. It's an old school rivalry. You can take the Dolphins out by beating them. Ravens Bengals. I mean, that's, it's only separating right now 1 game. If the Ravens were to beat them, they're only 1 game behind them for the division, which means now Baltimore's hosting a playoff game.
Well, and I was thinking the Raiders Chiefs. There's nothing the Raiders would love more than to knock the Chiefs out of home field.
Absolutely.
End the conversation. Nothing the Raiders would love more. And they played hard as hell. I know they had outside playoff possibilities still, but they played hard as hell against San Francisco last week with Stidham.
And, and the Browns, Deshaun Watson starting to get his stuff together. How much would they like to be the team that gives Tomlin his first losing season as a head coach?
I'm sure the Cleveland organization would love to do that. Deshaun Watson's still only 50% passer. I don't want to hear about Watson.
The Eagles aren't out of the water, with this number 1 overall pick, right? Seed. And you've got the Giants, division that can give them a loss and throw that in their tailspin.
They're playing their starters. Now, I don't know if it would be smart to play them the whole way, to be
I don't
quite
think they're
frank.
going to. I think Shaquan and those guys get out pretty early. But I think
they should.
But I think Philly's going to be doing the same thing. I mean,
well, but Philly has to win the game.
Yeah.
They have to win, or Dallas is probably Dallas wins and they get the NFC East.
Right now, you're hosting a home game, right?
And now you're not even having now you're traveling to Tampa instead of having a bye week. So
that's what I'm saying. I don't
real bad.
I don't remember many Week 18s that had this much going for it. I remember a lot of Week 18s where people were just cashing it out, right? And nobody was, they were going to sit the starters. They were already locked in. I don't see a lot of that on this slate, man. And kudos. If it's an NFL conspiracy, they did a hell of a job because it's going to be a fun week of football.
Yeah. Well, and the biggest thing happening on Sunday is winter football practice starting for James Macolino and his squad.
Big time.
So we here we go.
Yes, sir. I got my little guy in the hitting camp starting on Sunday. So, yep, it's about time to get them kids ready for spring sports, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's ramping up. All right, folks, thank you for joining us here on FL Teams. We will be back next week. We'll probably do something slightly different. We'll figure something out. Maybe we'll do a power rankings and then a playoff power ranking, something a little different.
Yeah.
Because look, as you saw from our rankings this week, even the top, just because there's going to be teams that make the playoffs who aren't in the top 14 teams in the NFL. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be savage with my ballot. If these teams played in the playoffs this week, who would win? I don't care if we're talking about the Texans or the Colts. Well, the Colts wouldn't beat anybody ever.
They not until they get their next aging quarterback.
We had all different bottom. We had the Colts on the bottom of my ballot. I think you had the Texans or Broncos.
Yeah.
Someone else had. Yeah. Get some different first place, last place teams. It'll all pay off next week with our final power rankings of the regular season, and we'll walk you through the playoffs as well here at FL Teams. So make sure you're subscribed, you follow on all the social medias, and we'll bring you that top shelf content. Again, as we said in the beginning, the thoughts and prayers and well wishes of everyone at FL Teams is with Damar Hamlin and his family and the Buffalo Bills, and just pray that everything turns out as well as possible for Hamlin and his health. So for Jeremiah Hensley, I'm Jeff Macolino. Thanks you to James and Isaac. We will see you next week here on FL Teams. Hit the wrong button.